So I'm just going to be going over some of the code and documentation of the game so far, just to give anyone recap who is going to be helping make the game. The first thing I wanted to show is this Node.js package, or I guess it's just JavaScript package called Doco. That's been really helpful. Basically, I'll open this file. So I've got the same file opened here, just the index.js, which is where all of the server-side logic lives, or most of it. So what you can do in here is once you run Doco by doing, I just have the terminal over here. You do Doco and then the current directory and then whatever file you want. So you could run that, and once you've got that, it will parse comments and put them over here on the side. And it will interpret it as markdown. So right here, I've got this in between asterisks, and that renders it as italicized. This right here is like a heading, H1. I believe you can also do HTML because it ends up just rendering it as HTML. And the way it'll access it is you'll run Doco, and I've actually made documentation, I think, for all of the files now, most of them at least. So what will happen is, say I run Doco and then cronjobs.js, you'll open the docs folder and it'll be the same file structure ending with .html. So I can actually open that from here and open the same file over here, and you'll see that all of this is bold. It's the two asterisks, and it's bold over here, which is very helpful. I think what I'll do is just go over the index.js file, since that's where a lot of the actual logic happens, and I'll just do it briefly. If you want to read it, you can. It'll be in the code. The app is built using Node.js, Express, and Postgres, SQL. You can find the documentation for all of those here. This is just all of the imports for all of the tools that are required. All of the database connections, like interacting with the Postgres server, are in here. And connections.js would probably be the most important one, as well as make dwarves. Eventually we'll have more files in here for things such as productions and attacks and convoys. And so far it's been nice to keep them separated in individual files instead of having like 1,000-page or 1,000-line file. So that's been pretty good. So here's the session setup. A session basically will store the browser's cookie in the Postgres database. And we've got a time right here that it expires. It expires after, I think, 4 hours, something, in case you're using like a public computer or something like that, or a shared computer. This line of code right here starts the, this right here defines the port, which by default is 3000 or whatever environment variable there may be once it's actually hosted online. The game starts here, and then immediately after the game starts, the cron task runs. And I'll just kind of briefly summarize what's happening here. So I've got it pretty well documented, but there is this task, and what it does is every however long this is, so right now it's 30 seconds, every 30 seconds it goes into the army orders table, and if there are any army orders, like say for like making dwarves, then it'll loop through all of them, and if the current time is later than the time that it should be done or equal to it, then it goes ahead and gives the user that amount of dwarves. So not too complicated. And this is how there's a separate cron job that will run, and it will run, I think, every like it's every 30 minutes for now. Those aren't like set in stone or anything. I'm sure they'll change as time goes on. Maybe we'll do like once a day or twice a day or once a minute. Who knows? We'll try to find like a good balance. Right now, the way this works currently, it just gives you one resource for each resource gathering dwarf. So say you have 50 miners and 100 farmers, it'll give you 100 food and 50 nitra. And obviously that'll change because users need to be able to like increase the speed at which they gather things and stuff like that. So this will probably change, but it works for now. It's pretty good for now. That's pretty much it with that file. I'll just go back to this one. The next section in the index.js is socket.io for the community tab, which I'll show here in a minute. And socket.io, I don't understand WebSockets. Hopefully we can find someone who does, because I finally got it working how I want it to. It essentially functions like a general chat in Ants, which is great because unlike Ants, it's instant. Instead of, you don't have to like refresh the page. Everyone sees all of the messages. The downside is I don't understand it well enough to implement it in more than one place for like alliances and stuff. But we'll work on the like attacking feature and like convoys and production, that kind of stuff, before we even focus on that. But at some point I'll have to figure out how to make more than one WebSocket for alliances, like for people in alliances to communicate with one another. But this is where all of that lives. So one thing you might notice, if you open up the views folder right here, everything ends in .ejs instead of .html. And the reason for that is if we open one of these up, you'll see most of it looks like just, regular HTML. And here in the partials, we've got the head tag, doc type, HTML, title, font, links to fonts on Google, style sheet, stuff like that. The reason it all ends in .ejs is, if you look at this right here, we can run JavaScript on a line-by-line basis without having to, use the style tags every single time we want to, or make a whole new function for things happening. We can just say locals is built into the either the request or the response, but there's a variable called locals, and it'll hold a title variable in it that will change the the words that appear in the title bar. And then this is just a quick if/or statement, basically, or if/else, saying basically, if there's locals.title, then make it the title. If there isn't, just put dwarf game. And you see a lot of that same logic. You can run like if statements and stuff. So that's basically why everything ends in EJS, and that's what this view engine variable is doing. I have a link in the comments for the documentation for this program, but it's pretty simple once you get used to it. And I even have a extension for EJS that'll make things just a little bit easier. I would highly recommend that. If we go back to the documentation, if you're not familiar with Node.js, it uses a lot of middleware, which is basically every time there is a request or response, it'll run through everything that you put in the app.use. So for example, every time there's a get or post request, or a HTTP response, it will go through the stack. And so, for example, whenever you say app.use or app.set something, like this Morgan is basically a program that I imported earlier to log into the console whenever a web request is sent for a page. So it's definitely just for production. We don't want like thousands of, once millions of people are playing this game, we don't want to, to be spammed with everyone visiting, but it's helpful for development. Same thing with Flash, where it kind of just shows a message up at the top. It's just another middleware. I wrote a function somewhere in here. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. So I wrote a function here that says it'll check the session token, and if there's no username, well, that means there is no session, and it'll redirect them to login. So I wrote it here, and then used it as a middleware. You can either say app.use or app.set or app.use a middleware, or you can use it only on some requests. So for example, right here on the app.get, if someone visits the index page, it will require them to be logged in. And that means, okay, so they are logged in, well, then it'll just go to the home page. If they're not logged in and this fails, well, if we go back to the function, it says they're not logged in, so go to the login page. And you'll see that's the case on any of the users pages, Army, construction, home. Basically, you're required to be logged in to go to any page except for obviously the login page and the register page. If you try to go to a page that doesn't exist and you're not logged in, you'll go to the login page. If you try to go to a page that doesn't exist and you are logged in, you'll just go to page not found, which I could just have it redirect you to the home or the login page in general, but I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to have a page not found page eventually, or one that's more robust that kind of says like, "Hey, welcome to Dwarf Game," you know, whatever, something like that. The GET request. So, or sorry, these are the post requests. I don't know. I guess it's a typo. The post request, you know, if a post request is sent to register, then gather all the messages or gather everything from the form, similar to, you know, PHP. You know, it's still a simple HTML post request. You know, log in, you got all the, you know, log out, deletes the session variable. That's pretty much it with index.js. And if you want to see more, you can go to this documentation, or I've tried to pretty extensively document all of the other pages, so feel free to go in here. This public folder is inside of here is for the HTML of rendering the actual documentation, so you don't have to worry about that. Just open the .html of the same name, and you'll be able to see the documentation for that specific file. So I'll go ahead and show you how I've been running the game. So say, you know, I go in and I make some edits, then I'll hit Control-C to bring it down. Actually, I need to open Docker first. I don't have Docker running. That'll take just a few seconds. Basically, make sure Docker's running. If you make some edits, you don't have to rebuild the image. You don't have to make a new container or anything, actually. Basically, what you do, download the code. You've already got your image built. So you'll go in here and say Docker compose up, and it looks like I made a typo at some point in army.js. Let's check that out really quick. On line 17. I dropped a backslash there. Let's try it again. So that's kind of a good example of what's in down. You can make an edit, save it, and then just do Docker compose up, and you don't have to like build an image or take 30 minutes to do anything. It just is pretty fast. So now it's running on port 3000, which I got bookmarked right here. I'm just gonna move this off screen really quick because I decided to use my actual email, which doesn't matter. Send me an email if you want, but there we go. We are logged in. So this is the home page. Eventually, we'll probably have a home page that just kind of gives you some information about the game, and or maybe it'll land you if it's a new account on the like help page, something like that. But for now, this is the home page. This is kind of where users can see. For example, this right here is the production that'll be done the soonest. This is the infantry and stuff that the user already has. These are the resources the user has. I put this here and then end up making this little box that floats up here, which you can actually hide by clicking this button. So I guess it's kind of redundant, but if you click Career Center, which by the way, it may not be immediately obvious that you're supposed to click this, so I'm gonna put it to where you hover here, and you have your options for like Career Center or whatever we end up calling it, military, something like that, and then building, technology, yada yada. But for now, this is just how you get there. So this is the task queue in order of like this is the longest. So say go in here and make just a massive order. It'll appear at the top, done in 2 months. So that one is going to take a while. But it'll stay on there. The way I've got it set up now, what I would like to do is, so this is the food required. I would also like for it to show how long it'll take. And that's not going to be hard. I just didn't feel like doing it yet. And I want this to just look nicer in general, because right now I don't really like the way it looks. But you can type here how many you want, or you can type here like how much food you want to spend. And it'll actually make sure that it's a valid number. And you also can't go any higher than what you actually have. So the most this will go to is how much food that the user has. And it's like that for all of these. So there's nothing on the company page yet. This will be where like you make kind of like Ants, where you have like alliances and alliance forums and chat and all that kind of stuff. The community tab. This is where the socket.io is used. And this is just like a general chat. So the way it works is, so in Postgres, whenever a message is sent, it sends it into the WebSocket, which shows it to everyone that's online at that exact moment. That's kind of a problem, because that works for like a chat room, but that doesn't work for here, because say I send something and then someone joins afterwards, well, they won't see it. And so what I've done is it sends it immediately, but it also saves it to a database. And then whenever someone joins, like I just did, it loads the last 50 messages that were sent in the chat in order. So like this one was sent recently. This one just sends automatically whenever someone joins, only to the person that just joined. So it's not going to appear like 100 times. In fact, I can just load this in another tab. Just put it off to the side. Well, there we go. Put that off to the side. And say, just gonna put that there. Log out of here. Log into a different account. You can see it didn't send it in here again. And there you go. So you can click on that. You can actually click on a username. This is dynamically generated, by the way. So if I click on admin, well, there isn't one named admin. I just put it there to show that this is not being sent by a different person. It's sent by the computer. But as you can see, we got this even though we weren't there, and then we got that as soon as it was sent. And we can click on a profile. Eventually, users should be able to edit it. But for now, it just shows the user's map location, name, that kind of stuff. So there's that. Here's the help page, which is kind of cool, because if you get the ID, well, I guess the ID of this. Oh, there we go. So we actually need the ID of the div. But let's say we are zoomed in and we think somebody maybe didn't read this chapter of the manual. We can send that link and enter, and it will scroll them to that specific point, which I think is pretty nice. And this also kind of goes into something I was going to show a second ago. The reason I made this resource panel detachable is on mobile. Once you zoom in, actual content will stretch to fit onto a phone. And so this resource panel will go up here, and say maybe you're typing a message, you could scroll down, or you can just tap this and hide it. You might have noticed this notification counter. So this is a messaging feature that I actually implemented. It works more like mail instead of like a live chat feature or whatever. but this is more for like long form content, or maybe people send like collective messages in alliances, or get a group chat going or something like that. Just this is basically like the ants messaging feature. Obviously it'll get more robust. You can write a new message and specify the recipient. This feature is not actually implemented. I mean, you might be able to like put stuff in here, but I thought it'd be cool to I thought it'd be cool to have note writing for users, but I think I may either not implement this at all or have it come later on as like a paid feature, because that's going to take up a lot of space in a database of people just writing notes. So might be like an option plus feature, something, if we decide to do that. That's pretty much everything. I mean, obviously there's stuff I didn't show, and I didn't even really go into the code, but I was just kind of showing you what I've actually got made, what doesn't exist, what does exist, that kind of thing. So, yep. Hopefully this helps.